Guys, Bella Thorne wrote a poetry book. At least I think she did. It is a book of some description by Bella Thorne in which attempts at poetry were made, and this is... oh, it is something. You're in for a treat today. Aren't they, Kyra? What do you think of it, Coo Bear? Yeah? Go on, give me your opinion. You sniff? And what do you think? Okay. Good girl. From the absolute first pages of this book, it is a complete chaotic mess of spelling mistakes and scribbles and just slightly unhinged ramblings. It is absolutely terrible from a kind of technical perspective. And you know what? I really don't hate it. I absolutely don't. Which is odd because I thoroughly expected to. I went into this book with like the lowest expectations. In the words of the great and powerful Hopper, you know what's lower than dirt? My expectations for this book were. And as the video goes on, you'll see I am a little bit shocked, I'll be honest. It's clearly just a silly little passion project of Bella's, which is just absolutely unapologetically her absolutely bizarre self wrapped in a little hardback packaging. It is, I would argue, objectively bad as poetry goes. Most of the pages did just leave me sort of baffled. I mean, there's no other word for it. But it also doesn't take itself seriously, and it's just a bit of fun. You don't see Bella Thorne out there lecturing everyone about what a world-class poet she is. You just see her having fun and throwing together something that she's written. Even she doesn't really seem to call it poetry. She calls it a book written by Bella Thorne. And she's clearly just kind of thrown this together with a hell of a lot of passion and a handful of grease and glitter and pure chaos. And oddly enough, it kind of works in a really weird way. I kind of weirdly respect what she's done with this. She doesn't big it up to be anything that it isn't. It just is what it is, which is kind of Bella Thorne through and through, isn't it? The book left me bewildered, but I also laughed a lot. Sometimes at Bella, sometimes with her. Sometimes I couldn't tell which was which. And I think it's safe to say that I do not, for a moment, get Bella Thorne as a person. We're clearly very different. We're about as different as two cis white women can be. But what surprised me in reading this book is that I found that I do have this kind of strange respect for her that I didn't have before, in that she has clearly been through a lot, and she's still working through a lot of stuff, but she's not really letting it destroy her as such. She just kind of has this weird confidence where she can do whatever she wants just because she feels passionate about it in the moment. Skill be damned, she'll do it anyway. And like I say, I kind of respect that. And I didn't really expect to come out of reading this book feeling that way, but I do. So let's take a look at some examples from the book and do a little bit of reading. Before we talk about the actual written content, let's talk about the art, because for one, I love the cover. I think it's actually really cool. It reminds me of the old like Ruby Gloom stuff that I was into back when I was like 13, and the kind of days of Salad Fingers and all that fun stuff on the internet, you know what I mean. Funnily enough, my driving instructor actually taught the creator of Salad Fingers how to drive as well, and apparently he's a really cool guy, so there you go. Fun little fact for you. Let's talk about this book and the art. So, as we saw with other books I've reviewed on my channel, like Swimming Lessons, Adult Lessons, Milk and Honey, it's really, really popular for these kinds of books to have little bits of artwork in them, sort of like illustrated poems, if you will. And while many people really like these, I've actually been quite critical of it in the past, because while I love the idea, I find the execution of many is just lacking. Some people, not naming names, I suspect have just kind of traced things for their artwork. Others I find a little bit bland. Bella does this kind of illustrated poem style and peppers drawings throughout her book. Also a few like Polaroid photos, so where kind of I got flashbacks to Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass as well. And I have to say, Bella's is by far the messiest offering out of all the ones I've reviewed so far. It's poorly executed, it's rushed, it's just a little bit bizarre at times, but strangely, it's my favourite of the lot, because it's got this sort of childlike excitement about it. It all feels completely original and authentic and very raw, and clearly what Bella lacks in any kind of skill, she makes up for in enthusiasm and passion and creativity. And that's why, despite these drawings being technically awful, some of them are actually kind of cool to look at, you know? They don't have the coldness that the illustrations in Swimming Lessons or Adulta Lessons had, or Dandelion for that matter. There were some pages like this, which are just bizarre and left me a little bewildered, but also I had a bit of a giggle about, so there's that. And then others, while messy, I kind of appreciated what she was going for, her creativity, her use of space or colour. I could see what she was going for with pages like these. The one with the bugs in particular, I think, is a great use of space and the page, and it conveys a hell of a lot. I feel like actually if Bella actually took some time and went back and kind of edited these and worked on her artwork if she wanted to, she could actually be really good, because she has this kind of natural, I guess, affinity for space and layouts and colour and all that kind of thing. So I'm pleasantly surprised. I think there's potential there. You'll also notice that, similar to Lana Del Rey's book, all the content in this book is typewritten with a few handwritten notes here and there. And I really do get the impression that this book is just a wild collection of scribbles and notes and doodles and bits of writing she's done kind of on the fly as and when she felt inspired, that have all just been collected together and scanned and thrown together and popped into a book. And for this reason, it feels a lot more authentic than Lana's book, although nowhere near as polished or cohesive. Lana's at least felt like a complete edited work. This doesn't. That said, I think Bella's reasons for using the typewriter and her actual use of it is far more creative than Lana's, and it serves an actual purpose, unlike Lana's. Lana's, I said, it always felt like she was just striving for the aesthetic of oh, I want typewritten pages, but without actually kind of having much of a reason to, other than very surface level visual stuff. Bella actually really makes use of the typewriter in a really, really interesting and unique way. So she utilizes different colors of inks, she layers words, she tries unusual layouts. You can tell in some cases she's just stuffed the page in at random angles, and she makes use of different spaces on the page. She types on scraps of paper, filling the space up where and when she can. She'll flip the paper around and write upside down and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And it definitely has this kind of joyfulness about it, like a kid playing with their first typewriter and just kind of experimenting and having fun and expressing themselves. And for that, I kind of really, really enjoyed even just looking at some of these pages. Like I say, it's messy, it's chaotic, it's a little bit wild, but it's very fun and it's very creative. Look at this one, for example, which I'm not even going to try and read to you, but it's full of attempts at writing the word love, hate, you effing bastard, you stupid effing bitch, which we all know is a favourite lyric of hers. You're a stupid fucking bitch, but you already know this. And you let me see your tits, but I'm still not over it. I'm not over it, cause I'm a super fucking bitch. I'm a super fucking bitch. Bitch. Bitch, bitch, bitch. Bitch. The power of being loved, stupid effing C word, you love the wrong way, darling. She raised me with this love. Love, liar, my truth, so on. Lots of layering and crazy stuff going on, red and black ink mixed together. You can see the typewriter kind of failing in places. You can see lots of typos in this. You can see lots of mistakes and everything. It looks like an absolute jumbled mess at first glance, but then you actually start to look at it properly and read it, and you see, like I say, all these layered words, some in red, some in black, the way the ink fades in places, typos and chaos and swearing, and there's just a lot going on, and it really does feel like a thoroughly accurate representation of a slightly manic episode or an anxiety-driven episode where all your thoughts are just jumbled and loud and your brain is foggy and your thoughts are intrusive and you don't really know how to cope with them all and everything's coming from every direction and you're trying to make sense of it all and find those little important bits in this loud, cloudy mess of your mind. And that's kind of what I feel is represented on this page. And I think it's fantastic. I'm not sure if it was exactly intentional in the sense that I don't think Bella sat down when she was calm and sober and thinking clearly and thought, I want to create a piece about how this feels and I'm going to do it by X, Y, and Z. Instead, I think it was just more of an in the moment, she made something when she was feeling this way. And for that reason, I kind of love its authenticity and how emotive it is. That said, it does bring us back to a discussion that I kind of touched on a bit back in my old Trisha Paytas poetry video when we reviewed their book. And it's about 2 years now, I think that was. And I kind of brought up the question of, does art have to be intentional for it to be good? If you manage to pull something off really well without ever intending to have done it, is that the same as someone who sat there and worked on their skill and honed it and actually tried to do something and achieved it? How much does intention and skill and practice matter in art? Or is it just the final product, and if you manage to pull it off, that matters? And I never really came up with a solid answer one way or another, but I guess I have a couple more talking points now that I've thought about it a bit more. And I guess one of the things to consider is that I do think you need to kind of treat or view work differently when you're looking at, like I say, a piece which has been carefully and intentionally made with skill, and when you're looking at a piece that's just been made with pure emotion in the heat of a moment. I think you need to remember that they're different, but neither's exempt from criticism just because they were made in different ways. So, like, if a well-constructed piece that is made very skillfully is cold and emotionless, you can still criticize it for that. And if an emotional piece is still poorly made, I think you can criticize it for that too. But it's also important to kind of take into account the artist's intentions. So I don't know, like, there's no right or wrong here at all. There's no solid answer. There's no one thing that's good and one thing that's bad. It's all very subjective, isn't it? And the other thing as well is, when you're looking at pieces of art, like many of the ones in this book, which are just made in an emotional state without any real forethought or skill, that doesn't just mean it's a completely good or completely bad piece of work. There are still many kind of things and angles and facets to consider and analyze. For example, how much has the creator been kind of honing their skills over the years before this moment? How much effort was put into this? Did the artist pour their heart into it and leave it unedited because they wanted it to be raw and real and authentic? Or did they just leave it as is because they're lazy or arrogant and they don't enjoy editing, or they didn't think they needed to because they're like, oh, I'm good enough as it is. The other thing I guess you have to consider is, okay, this is a raw, authentic piece now. Let's say you did edit or rewrite or go back and redo it. Would that add or take away from the piece of work? Could you make it better, or would you be losing something important? There's lots of things to consider. And again, you just have to do it on a case-by-case basis, on a piece-by-piece basis, and a lot of it just comes down to your personal preferences and what you like and what you enjoy. As I have always said, like, since I've been doing poetry videos these last, 2 years, there's no definitive conclusions, there's no right and wrong. Poetry is very subjective, and what one person likes, another person might hate. And you can sit here and talk, or I can sit here and talk about the technical aspects and say, this is technically good, this was technically pulled off well, this is the poetic technique they're using here, this isn't a poetic technique, and so on. But ultimately, it all just comes down to what you like and what you don't like, and what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, and what you get out of a piece of work. And yeah, ultimately, if you like something, you like it, and there's nothing wrong with that. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Simple as that, really. There are a few more examples of this sort of manic style where you can see Bella utilise her typewriter and just sort of general layouts in her book really well. This poem, for example, about depression. Again, I won't read this to you because I think it's more of one you have to sort of read for yourself and experience and kind of chase it around the page rather than have it read to you. But I will pop it on screen as always. It's a poem, like I say, about depression. And this page is an absolute mess. It's difficult to get your head around, but I kind of enjoyed the experience of reading it because, like I say, you do have to chase these words around the page. You have to spin the book. You have to flip it upside down. And I love how it did actually make you feel really kind of confused and disoriented. And for the purpose of the poem and what it's about, I think that worked really, really well, and it was a really smart thing to do. I don't think she just left it like this out of laziness. I think it was sort of intentional because she was trying to convey how she feels and that confusion, and trying to, make the reader feel that way as well. It actually reminded me a lot of the really creative way that space and layouts are used in the book House of Leaves, I can't speak, which is a book that I really, really adored. Without giving too many spoilers, there are parts when a certain character is exploring a house with corridors that move and shift and change and so on, and there's also a lot of kind of confusion and disorientation and sort of a loneliness as well, and this is portrayed in the way the words move around the page and how they move from page to page and how you do have to flip the book and move it and all sorts of stuff, and it's fantastic. And this is like a slightly less skilled and shorter version of that, I found, if that makes sense. Another example here, in this one I didn't quite care so much for the actual written content, but I appreciate the creativity of her like typing on scraps of paper and having text like wander off the torn edges. I thought this was really cool and a really interesting use of layouts and paper, and again the typewriter, I thought it was really cool. Now let's talk about some of the actual like written content and substance of these poems, because it is a real mixed bag. It's just all over the place. Some are just absolutely horrific and bizarre or just a bit pointless. Some made me laugh, but I'm not sure it was intended that way, or maybe it was, I don't know. Like this one, fucking Shakespeare. He really cocked me out of love. And then like 50 exclamation marks? What do I even say to this? That's quite funny. I couldn't make this stuff up, could I? Here's another one. What's better than angry and British? Ha ha ha. As a British woman, I was just left a little baffled and giggling to myself, and I just didn't really know what to make of it. And of course the best poem in the entire book, and one that I like to think Bella wrote about my little Kyra Bean, my dog, is My Special Friend Kyra. K. Kick ass. Y. Euphoric. R. Relentless. A. Addictive. It's terrible, but for all I joke, right, this is objectively awful, but there is something strangely endearing about a 20-something-year-old woman enthusiastically writing an acrostic poem just to say she thinks her friend's cool. It's kind of sweet, even if it is terrible. There are some of the poems, though, if you can call them that, that I actually think showed quite a bit of promise. And again, like Trisha Paytas's book, they were pretty emotional at times, and they were very raw, and they were very real. And I do think, actually, with some editing, Bella might actually have a bit of skill somewhere in here. She wrote at times about some really serious topics like sexual assault, being molested as a kid, issues with her family, depression, mental health problems. And while none of these poems were particularly polished or skillful, they weren't actually half bad. There was a lot of promise in many of them, which, again, surprised me, because remember her lyrics. Oh, huh, oh, huh, oh, huh, oh. Huh, oh, it's me. Oh, I love the way she say, that pussy mine, pussy mine. Oh, I worked that pussy out like 9 to 5, 9 to 5. Her writing is basically just a stream of consciousness, nothing else. And I don't mean that she's written like in a particular style to imitate a stream of consciousness. No, it literally just is her stream of consciousness on paper. That's all it is. She wrote, she put her thoughts out there, and then she just threw them out into the world. And it's strangely admirable and brave. And normally I don't like this kind of thing. I'm like, no, if it's going to be poetry, like, make it good. Put in the time and the effort. But it's weird because I feel like she didn't go back and edit, not because she was lazy, but because kind of like it was almost too emotional and raw for her in places to go back and do that. So I'm left conflicted. And what is funny though is she actually got some famous like friends, at least I think they're famous, I don't know, I recognise a few of the names, not all of them, but she got some to give her quotes about the book, not to put like on the cover like normal people do, but she just threw them in the back of the book in a few pages. And it's very odd because none of them actually seemed to read the book, but everyone wanted to offer her some support. So it's odd. This one from Jessica Chastain, whoever that is, said, I haven't read Bella's book, but if it's anything like her, then you're in for a treat. She's honest like so few are these days. She's a rule breaker, doesn't stay in her lane, pushes herself beyond what you'd expect. She misbehaves, doesn't follow the rules. I love her for all of that. All women could benefit from behaving a little less. It's an exciting prospect, right? Which surprisingly is a pretty damn accurate representation of what the book is. So, there you go. Another one from Diplo said, hey, I didn't read this book. Bella gave it to me and I left it on an aeroplane. I adore the fact she just included this stuff. It's fantastic. I'm not quite sure what all this says about Bella and her friendships, but it gave me a good giggle. I'm thoroughly happy she included them. So one poem which epitomizes the whole stream of consciousness style is this one here, which is quite long. I won't read it all, but I will read a portion of it to you. Content warning here because it does talk about sexual assault, so if you want to skip this, jump forward maybe a minute or two. He didn't have to deal with the countless times he molested me. He didn't deal with the countless times I felt ashamed or disgusting. And he already hated him, so why? I think Stockholm Syndrome is why. Putting trust or love into your captor because it's the only way you can deal with the situation in front of you. The only way I could deal with it, I guess, is by loving it, loving this cruel nature of his. Hating what he was doing to me, but trying to convince myself that I loved it. Because I was letting it happen to me. I wasn't kicking his teeth in, I was simply letting it happen to me. So how can I sit here and write this and do nothing about it? Because I am selfish. I don't want to sit down with the cops and convince them I was raped many times. Why should I have to convince someone I was taken advantage of? Why is our legal system so effed up they make their victims feel like villains? They sit there smug and try and convince you were asking for it. I'm sorry, no. I was not 6 years of age asking for this cruelty. No girl was drunk at a party asking to be raped, defiled. I don't care if you didn't scream, no. That doesn't mean you weren't raped. That doesn't mean what's happened to you is nothing. I guess it just means what happened to you, they don't understand it. Most likely because they haven't experienced it. I just don't want to hope anymore. Hope people will do the right thing because I haven't. I'm taking that blame. I'm not hiding. I'm no coward. And yet I am. Because I am lucky enough to be in a country where I have the right to speak my mind. When I first started writing this piece, I thought, yes, I'm definitely selfish, but I'm not. I'm just lost, and I need to give myself the chance not to be selfish. Wish me luck. So, I did end up reading the whole thing. I got carried away there. But I do think it is kind of powerful and emotive, and she's talking about a really important topic, and I've criticised a certain other YouTuber who won't be named's poetry before for feeling like an unedited stream of consciousness, but that was mainly because it felt lazy. In that case, I felt like she just sat there at a computer and typed for a while, like whatever was in her head, and then said like, oh, CBA, it's probably good enough. And she just like didn't want to edit. And so I criticised that because it all felt unfinished and lazy and like a cash grab. Pages like this in Bella's book, though, it's definitely an unedited stream of consciousness, obviously. But it feels different because it feels raw and emotional, and you can almost like imagine her sat at a typewriter just like smashing these keys out while she's in tears, or she's having a bit of an emotional breakdown, or she's on some drug or alcohol binge or whatever, and it's just messy and it's raw and it's real and it's not pretending to be anything else, and so it actually makes reading it really, really emotional, and you feel what Bella's feeling, and you understand why her brain's meandering the way that it is, and you see her thoughts flipping back from one side to the other and back again. And it's difficult because on the one hand I'm like, you know what, actually, if she had gone back and edited this and she'd actually like studied poetry and she knew what she was doing, she could make something pretty damn incredible here. But at the same time, I don't know if she needs to, because she's not necessarily trying to be a poet, she's just trying to share her feelings. So in that case, I kind of love it as is. There are times as well in this book when Bella's level of self-reflection and self-awareness actually surprised me and really impressed me at times, because, like, as someone who doesn't really know her, I didn't think she had it in her, but she clearly does, and I think that's really impressive. For example, I will just read you a little extract from this. I just need him to tell me it's okay. I need him to be there for me when the waters are rough. I want him to love me, to look me in the eyes and say, you're accepted. I accept you, Bella. Why? Because I can't accept myself. For some reason in my head, I'm just not effing good enough. Not good enough for him or them or anyone for that matter. And since I can't have him, I just look for the next him or the next her. Why can't I just look for the next me? Find me and accept me. Was it because I was molested my whole life? Exposed to sex at such a young age that it feels the most natural thing to offer the world? Or is it because I was raised to think I wasn't good enough? God, I'm sure a really good therapist would have a great answer for me, but all I have is this paper and this typewriter. So I guess I think I'm just not good enough. Not good enough for him or her. None of this matters. What happened to me? What matters is what's happening to me right now. I can't blame my childhood. In fact, I can't blame anyone for anything. All I can do is blame me. I blame me for not loving myself. I blame me for not thinking I'm attractive. I blame me for putting this on everyone around me. And again, there's this really interesting level of self-reflection there, a lot of self-awareness, and you can tell she really isn't writing for anyone but herself, and to just figure out these thoughts in her head and where she's at, and the fact that she's done that, and she clearly wasn't writing with anyone else in mind but herself, and then she put it out there into the world. I kind of think it's really brave. I don't know. There aren't really too many poetic techniques in Bella's writing, so there's not really anything to analyse. I know this isn't like my other videos, but there are, like this one. There's an attempt at song lyrics, which show she doesn't actually have a terrible sense of rhythm. It's better than her actual song lyrics, I'll be honest. This one, Runaway Daddy, we have junked up with nothing to say, fuck up, it's time to pay, worked up, it's your last day, now pay with your life 'cause it's time to stay. Daddy, daddy, I wish you would come find me. Daddy, daddy, it doesn't hurt when it's you and me. Daddy, daddy, you walked out the door. I didn't know, I was petrified, but I wouldn't let you see me cry. Lived your life in the fast lane. Too bad it's caused us all this pain. From streets to fame with nothing to gain. You left me outside, wandering in the rain. And then there's a whole other page of it as well. It's not perfect, but there's definitely a hell of a lot of promise here, and I do think she has a really good sense of rhythm, good sense of rhyme. She knows what she's doing, and it confuses me because her actual song lyrics are so terrible. And then this, I'm like, damn, okay. With a lot of work, she could have something good here, you know? In other shorter poems like this one, she does at least attempt to use a few things like metaphors, and she gets a little more figurative and experimental, and again, showing a little bit of promise. Happiness, I swear it will be mine. It might not be dripped in gold, but it's a rare dime. Happiness would just wash judgment away so that I could truly live in the moment right away. I worry my treasure is wrapped in snakes and hidden far away, or that it's right in front of me and I'm too human to see it. So I ask you, have you seen my treasure? Then again, she follows it up with work like this, which just brings me back to the whole what the hell am I reading state. Have you seen my happiness? Oh, is it right there? Under your shoe? You cunt rag. Just, why? God's sake. So, overall, in conclusion, this book is crass, and it's crude, and it is riddled with basic spelling mistakes, full of typos, a lot of swearing. Sometimes it is so incoherent it's almost impossible to make sense of. But I do think there are some real hidden gems in here. There's a lot of potential in Bella's work in general, and oddly enough, I strangely enjoyed the book in its own way, you know? I was definitely never bored by it, which is fantastic, because I'll be honest, by a quarter of the way through Adultolescence, I was bored out of my mind. Same with Dandelion. Swimming lessons, the second half of the book was just kind of dragging on a bit. Milk and Honey, same thing. a lot of these books get kind of too repetitive and too samey, and you don't really want to read on because you're like, okay, I've seen all this before, give me something new. You had no idea what was coming with this thing. One page, she just writes a list of songs that she likes for no reason, and you're like, oh, cool, thanks for that. Another page, she sticks in some Polaroid photos of a dog, I think. Another one, she does this like handwritten letter to her mum. You have no idea what's coming. It's just an absolute wreck. It's chaotic, and it's really, really fun. So when you consider the fact that this is clearly just a little bit of a passion project for Bella, I can't really criticize it too harshly in terms of like, you know, putting it up there with other established poetry, because to the best of my knowledge, like I say, she's never claimed to be a poet. She didn't really even sell a lot of these books. Even this one was actually pretty difficult for me to find, to be honest. Instead, she just seems like someone who enjoys being creative and enjoys making stuff, and even if she doesn't quite have the skills yet to back it up, she's willing to give it a try and just kind of put herself out there. And overall, I think the book had a lot of heart. It had a lot of emotion put into it, and it was definitely an experience to read it. Would I recommend you go out and buy The Life of a Wannabe Mogul Volume 1, apparently. God, I'd love to find Volume 2. Would I recommend you go out and buy this book if you're a lover of poetry? No. But out of all the YouTuber books I've read so far in this series on my channel, it is strangely one of the more enjoyable ones. It's the most unpredictable. It's the most original. It was clearly all written by her and not ghost written. I don't think it was a cash grab at all. I think it was just something she was passionate about. Is it the highest technical quality? No, but I'd say it's the most memorable, and it's the most emotive, and it's the most authentic. And for that reason, I give it a thumbs up. But there you go, they're just my thoughts, and I've surprised myself with this video because it's way more positive than I expected it to be, and I'm shocked. So there you go. If you're new here, it would be great if you subscribe. Also, if you're not new here, also just check if you're subscribed as well, because a few people have messaged me recently saying YouTube unsubscribed them, so maybe check that out and see if that's happened as well. But if you enjoyed this, it would be wonderful if you want to give it a thumbs up and leave a little comment below. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.